Buongiorno, everybody. Ciao tutti, and such things. Welcome to Wild Wild Podcast. My name is Adrian Smith, and I am joined by the one, the only, the legend, Rod Barnett.
Oh my, legend. Yes, I am here, and my name is Rod Barnett. Thank you very much.
And we have been away again for a few weeks.
Yes, busy.
How have you been, Rod?
Um, I've been pretty good. I've had the opportunity to actually take a few days off from work and go to Kentucky to see a few friends at a conference I go to once a year, where basically I'm there just to see people that I don't get to see but about once a year, which is relaxing and I enjoy that. But trying to get back into the swing of things vis-a-vis podcasting and such.
Very good. And we've also recorded another commentary track.
This is true.
Since the last episode,
yes.
Which is why we've been a bit slow doing another one of these, because they take a lot of time.
They take some effort, and sometimes it takes Adrian doing lots of work while I nap. It's great. I love it.
I mean, the speed at which some people, and I'm naming no names, some people seem to churn out commentary tracks on a sort of twice a week basis, and I don't know how they do that, because it takes a while to really get all the research done and nail it all down and then edit it. So yeah, anyway, we've done it and we can't say what it is yet, but I guess we could say it's for a label that we haven't previously worked for.
It is? I thought we had worked for these folks
before.
Yeah.
No, same producer, different company.
Okay.
I'll tell you later.
No problem.
But I think we could also say it's Italian.
Yes, it is Italian.
And it is from the 80s.
Mm-hmm. And who better to talk about an Italian film than an American and a Brit? So there.
Exactly. And it's a film that I think most people will never have heard of.
That's
pretty obscure.
It is very obscure, and that was part of the joy of trying to find information about it. Let's just leave that
and
there.
The challenge. Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, it was cool. So I'd be pleased to tell people more about that when that comes out. In the meantime, you've released a couple of other episodes of your other podcast, I think.
I've released, Dead Man's Eyes came out on the Bloody Pit back in May.
Oh yeah.
So that's one of the Inner Sanctum films, and I'm about to release. By the time this comes out, I'm sure I will have gotten out our episode on Damnation Alley from 1977.
Oh, nice. I've never seen that.
You know what? Strangely enough, I have a buddy on the podcast who, over the course of several years, he and I have been slowly going through the science fiction films of the 1970s, kind of the movies that were made prior to Star Wars kind of breaking everyone's brains and altering what people thought of as science fiction for a good decade plus. And when he suggested, hey, let's go ahead and do Damnation Alley, I thought, okay, well, this is my opportunity to rewatch that film and see if I like it any more now than I have in the past. And then we sat down to record, and before we started recording, he says, by the way, just want you to know that I think this movie stinks. And I went, what?
Oh.
He says, yeah, I'd never seen it before. That's one of the reasons why I was excited to do a podcast on it. I'll finally see this movie after avoiding it for 43 years, and now I wish I'd avoided it for 43 more. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be. I said, this is going to be an interesting show. So for about 2 hours, we talk about why the original source material is phenomenal and the film that they came up with is not. So that's not usually how I like to go about doing a podcast on a film, but hey, we've covered a lot of 70s science fiction films, and maybe it was just time for one that neither of us could really rally behind.
Fair enough. I am familiar with the artwork for it, but I don't think I've ever actually seen it. But anyway, are you going to finish that season with Star Wars?
No, actually, that's the whole idea. Is we've kind of been bouncing around. When we say the 1970s, we're really talking about kind of the decade that started in '68 with things like Planet of the Apes and ended with Star Wars. But we still haven't covered a few of the I guess you would say, more impressive and notable films. And the next time he and I do a 70s science fiction film, we're going to do, finally, one of my favorites from the period, and one that has had a real up and down critical evaluation over time, is the amazing film from John Boorman, Zardoz.
Uh-huh. All right. Nice.
Yes, a film that so many people still to this day claim sucks, and I am willing to go to bat for it.
Well, I wrote an essay for the Blu-ray booklet.
Oh, which one?
The
I have two.
Arrow video, the Arrow release about 10 years ago.
Ah, well, I have that edition. I have not popped the plastic off of it because I have both the American Blu-ray and the British, and this is going to be my opportunity to just wallow in that thing.
Oh, wow. Check me out on there when you finally open it. Cool. Well, I look forward to that. So anyway, right, let's get back to business, because I'm quite excited for this film today. I am too. The cast, the location, there are pirates. There's a lot to love in this movie. So we are, of course, talking about Il Boia di Venezia, aka aka the Executioner of Venice, also known. Let me start that again. Also, Il Boia di Venezia, also known as Blood of the Executioner, also known as the Executioner of Venice. Here is some dramatic music. So yeah, I got confused there because it was released in the UK as Blood of the Executioner.
Which isn't a bad title once you're about halfway through the movie, you realize why that would be a good title.
But in America, it was released as The Executioner of Venice. Mm-hmm. And I did actually find it was distributed by a company called Medallion Pictures, on television anyway. They have a big ad advertising this great package of films that they've got, including, I'll just give you a few, the Fighting Musketeers, the Lion of Amalfi, Cavalier in Devil's Castle, Marie Antoinette, The Slave of Rome, and The Executioner of Venice, which is a pretty great package if you ask me.
I was about to say, I would watch any and all of those films.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so this one is from 1963, and the director he's like the quintessential director for this season, Luigi Capuano.
Yeah, we keep running across his movies.
Yeah, he's specialized in this stuff, it seems. Now, of course, we should just say you shouldn't confuse this Luigi Capuano with the Luigi Capuano who is the current chief executive of Dundee United. I don't think they are the same person.
No, and since I've never... I understand that the words that you used were English, but I'm not at all sure what the meaning of any of them were. So that's
if you look up Luigi Capuano on Instagram and you're confused about why it's mainly photos of footballers instead of peplum films, that's why.
Okay, gotcha. Now it makes a roughly 60% of sense. Okay, I gotcha.
And Luigi Capuano started making great films right from the off in the late 40s. Mm-hmm. Just all the kind of films that we like, it would seem.
Oh yeah, that we talked about him before. I mean, we've covered 2 of his other films in this season alone. Just looking at the titles and the plot outlines for his films starting in 1948, it's like, man, somebody just line them up for me. I'll watch one a night.
Yeah, I'll watch 2 at a time, one with each eye.
That might be the easiest way to get through them as quickly as possible. But
so yeah, we've already done the Terror in the Red Mask and the Tiger of the Seven Seas. Yep. And we could have just done 10 of his movies pretty much, because he's he made one around the same time as this. I'm assuming because it's called The Lion of St. Mark, so it's another film in Venice. I'm assuming he did the two at the same time.
Probably.
And yeah, he's done Zorro movies, Avenger movies, Sandokan, loads of great stuff. He was still directing Zorro films right up into the 70s. And he did another one called Tiger of Terror, which I'm not sure if that is... Oh, no, that is a Sandokan film.
Mm-hmm.
That's not connected to Tiger of the Seven Seas. But yes, so I'm assuming you must have seen more of these than me, because I've only seen the ones we've done on this season.
Well, I think I have seen a couple of them under various titles because the Hercules film I think originally was like a Samson title, and I've seen that under one title or another. I get mixed up with the Sandokan films because I know I've seen the one that one of the Umberto Lenzi Sandokan films, but I don't, and I think I've seen one of the ones that this director made as well, but I can't be positive. I think Zorro, Rider of Vengeance from '71, the last film he directed, I think I've seen that one. I know I've not seen his Western, The Magnificent Texan, but now, of course, I want to.
Of course.
One that has been on my radar for a while, but I've not yet watched, is Mystery of Thug Island from 1964. It's like, well, I mean, if we're going to be, making Sandokan films, it's not much of a leap to, just go ahead and do.
Well, there's also one he made around the same time called L'Avventura della Tortuga, or The Adventures of Tortuga, which, again, all of these things seem to fit very well with what we're talking about, sort of adventures in the 1600s, pirates, Guy Madison again.
I know.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. And then he also did a gladiator film, Vendetta of the Gladiators, starring Mickey Hargitay.
And like I say, I think I've seen that one, but I can't remember for sure. The thing is, long ago there was this this company that used to put out these 50 packs of movies, and what they were low quality prints of things that essentially were TV, they were taken from 16 millimeter prints that were used for television when they were sold into syndication back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And so they would package these all together, and you could get, for like $20 or $25, you could get 50 movies.
Oh, yeah.
And they were always, they were themed, and there was this set called Warriors, where lots of Hercules films, lots of Peplum films, but it also had other kinds of things that kind of bled into that set to kind of, top up the 50, because it would just be whatever was slapped into those syndication packages, and this company could get their hands on pretty easily. Yeah. And so at a certain time, my podcasting buddy Troy Gwynn, he methodically went through that 50 film set methodically, like taking notes on each one. This was like 15 years ago. He was just, I'm going through this entire thing. He did the same thing with Bill Warren's famous book, Keep Watching the Skies, about 1950 science fiction. He methodically went through and watched every film in that book.
Wow.
Yeah. When he sets his mind to something.
But the picture quality on those DVD sets was rubbish.
Oh, it was garbage. But it was the only way at the time to be able to see these and know at least something about what you were watching before you push play.
And still is probably with some of these. He did his. He's got a Samson movie, Samson Against the Black Pirate, starring Rosalba Neri. I mean, wow, this is great stuff. We need box set upon box set upon box set.
Maybe we should have done just a mini season to watch 5 more of this director's films.
Yeah, man. It's really cool stuff. So he's an interesting character, Luigi Capuano. He was born in 1904 and lived to the age of 75. So he was he's from Naples originally, but he joined the Air Force in the Second World War. So he was a pilot in the Air Force and survived the war, became a screenwriter and director once he moved to Rome, beginning initially with melodramas set in Naples, which was a very popular thing in the, Naples set melodramas were hugely popular in the south of Italy. But then, obviously in the mid to late 50s, started getting into all the swashbuckling stuff that we like. Also, you might sometimes see his name under a pseudonym, Lewis King.
Which, That's not bad.
which I can't remember whether he was called Lewis King on this one, but yeah, I've heard worse.
Oh, well, I guarantee you his name was Lewis King when he made that one Western, The Magnificent Texan. I guarantee you is directed by Lewis King. I'm willing to put $50 on the table for
Yeah.
that.
But yeah, it's great stuff, and he's clearly, I mean, because we've enjoyed his. This is another third film we've done, and they're all just they don't really. I mean, this one's a little bit slow in places compared to the other two, but even so, they go at quite a clip.
But I have to say, I think the reason why this one slows down at points is because this one's really character heavy.
Yes,
There's a
that's
lot.
true.
There's a lot of intrigue,
There's
and
a lot of drama.
yeah. This one leans more heavily into if you're looking at this, on the drama versus adventure scale. This one's probably like 65% drama and 35% adventure. And that's there's a lot of political intrigue and
Yeah,
character. You're really deep into some of the character motivations and
yeah,
their hidden agendas, and it's really it's different from the straight adventures in that those are always a little pulpy, and the characterizations are just they're fairly thin. They're just interesting enough to keep you intrigued enough to care a little bit about who the good and bad guys are. But this one's deep into lifelong regret and having a surrogate father who you love and a real father you're unaware of, and things of this kind of this
yeah,
nature. It's really great.
yeah. And I guess also the location makes a difference as well, because in the previous films we've kind of been out in the wilderness, and then there's a castle, or we're out on the seven seas and there's pirate ships, where so we can have sort of big battles in those locations, whereas this location they could have quite small battles, and they had to be very careful at all
Yeah.
times with their camera angles to not reveal anything, like a TV aerial or whatever would have been sticking out. And
I kept waiting because anytime they're shooting these kind of films in not just in Venice, but in any actual city
yeah,
where it's easily identifiable, there's no getting around the fact that this is shot on
yeah,
location. I keep waiting for the camera to reveal. So I used to joke about looking for the post World War II ATM,
yes.
hidden almost completely by a tree, but not enough that you can't find it. But
And some of those wide shots of the lagoon here, I'm sure if we were watching this in 4K on the big screen, you might be able to spot a speedboat or two in the background.
maybe so.
But yeah, we're in Venice, and the location stuff is great. And there is some studio work here as well for a couple of interiors,
Yeah.
but even quite a few of the interiors are shot in real rooms in places that I've been to in Venice. I recognised
Oh wow,
places
really?
that the location work is great in this one. It was very exciting because I was in Venice at Christmas, and I went round the Doge's palace, and like I've stood in exactly the same places as they're filming some of this stuff. It was very cool. The permissions they got to do this stuff, I was quite impressed at how much they were filming in just in St. Mark's Square and other places like that, and they're talking about places. Anyway, yeah, it was cool. We'll get a bit more into that. We've mentioned the director. Let's quickly mention a couple of stars. Lex Barker, no stranger to this podcast.
No, not at all. American film actor who was famous mostly for playing Tarzan, although he was in a lot of different things before his his stateside career started to dry up a bit. So he having the fact that he spoke multiple languages made it easy for him to go to Europe and parlay his waning star into a waxing one for sure. And so for well over a decade, almost a decade and a half, he worked in Europe making adventure films of all types, everything from pirate movies, peplums, Knights of the Round Table kind of ripoffs, Robin Hood movies. Was even in a couple of the 1960s Dr. Mabuse films.
Yes, I was going to say, well, he didn't just come to Italy; he went off to Germany as well.
Exactly.
Made several. He did a couple of the Mabuse sequels, Winnetou westerns. He played Old Shatterhand. And
exactly. Starting with the Treasure of Silver Lake,
Yeah.
which I want to just once again highly recommend to people. Anytime I think that a film that needs to be better and more widely seen comes to the fore, I always like to point them out. And in
Right.
this case, if there's one of those German westerns that can get you in the door and make you a fan, start with the Treasure of Silver Lake. It's not as
Okay.
difficult to come by as the others. Start there, and then you probably get hooked.
He also plays a character in a couple of films that sound great. Again, like so many of these things, I now need to see them. He plays a character called Dr. Karl Sternau in two German adventure films, Treasure of the Aztecs and Pyramid of the Sun God, which sound like they would have been made by Antonio Margheriti 20 years later.
Yeah, probably so. I've seen Pyramid of the Sun Gods, but it was so long ago, my memory has faded. I just remember once again thinking it was wild that a Tarzan was running around in this film, but still, good stuff. I recommend so many of the things that he made.
Yeah.
He even did a couple of Eurospy films. It's
Hmm.
you're kind of swimming in lovely waters anytime you dive into that stuff that Lex Barker
Yeah.
made when he was in
Have,
Europe.
have you seen his German Edgar Allan Poe style film? The IMDb calls it The Blood Demon, which also
Oh.
stars Christopher Lee
Yes,
and
yes.
Karen Dor.
I know it much better under the title "The Torture Chamber of Dr. Sadism."
Oh, that's that one.
Yeah.
I thought it looked familiar. Okay, I have seen that.
Yeah,
The name I know is
absolutely
yes, okay.
fantastic film.
Yeah,
It's
that is
also
great.
has Karen Dor as the female lead,
Yeah.
who's always fantastic anytime you see her. But that's just a
Yeah.
great little horror movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've obviously talked about him in relation to the Red Mask, Terror in the Red Mask. He was very good in that. And yeah, the other kind of notable character actor who went off to Italy to have a career is Guy Madison, who we also see in this film, another American who ended up in Europe for the 60s. And have we seen him before in this
I don't think
podcast? I
have.
feel like we must have done. Oh, yes, we have. He was in Super Argo. He's the bad guy.
Well, yeah, that's
in
true.
Super
That's
Argo
true.
and the Faceless Giants. And, of course, he's our main guy in LSD.
Oh, and also Prisoner of Devil's Island. We forgot about that.
Oh, yeah. And like so many people we've talked about in this podcast, he seemed to end up in One Ton Ton, the Dog Who Saved Hollywood.
Yeah, but that one, I don't think that really
Everyone
counts.
ends up in that, it
I
seems.
don't think that really counts. But yeah, he was in a lot of great movies. Once again, he
Yeah.
was in those two Sandokan films that the director
Right.
of this film made. He was also in Old Shatterhand in 1964. So he and Lex Barker were old hands, old hands by that point, knew each other well,
Yeah.
and he was just that. Once again, he's another one of those actors who, once he went to Europe, the stuff that he got to be involved in is it's the kind of stuff that makes you and I the movie fanatics that we are, because they're just
Yeah.
every single genre that was possibly going to sell tickets is what was being produced, and they were being produced dozens at a stretch, and
Yeah.
yet there's so many little gems in there. You have to sift through some of the things that aren't quite as good, but that's part of the fun.
And he's got a great story as to how he got started. He was a sailor in the Coast Guard during the war. And then one weekend he was in Hollywood attending a Lux Radio Theatre broadcast and was spotted in the audience by an assistant for David O. Selznick, who was looking for an unknown sailor to play a part in a film he was making called Since You Went Away. So he got signed. So he just went to watch a radio show being recorded, got spotted, got signed up, and then had a movie career.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Which is
he was
pretty
famous
good going.
for about 7 years doing playing Wild Bill Hickok on television in the 50s.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean, for American audiences, let's put it this way: as soon as he decided to go over to Europe, he was so well known here in the States that he was almost guaranteed box office of a certain level here in the States,
Right.
because he was a big TV star. So he was a name that was known.
Okay. Yeah, no, he's great, and he plays the villain in this one, right?
Hmm.
Just making sure I've got my characters the right way around.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
he's definitely the villainous guy. Unlike the
yeah,
last time we saw him, where he was the good bad guy or the
yeah.
bad good guy,
Oh,
depending on
yeah,
how you want to put it.
that's true. Yeah, depending on your reading of LSD.
No,
Um,
no, no. I'm talking about the last adventure film we saw him in, the
oh,
Prisoners of
sorry,
Devil's
yes,
Island, where
Prisoner of Death
he
Island.
was the good bad guy or the
Oh,
bad good
yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah.
It's just depending on how you want to
No,
squint.
that's true. In both of those films, it's kind of a bit ambiguous, but yeah, I like to think of him as the hero in Devil's Island film. He was quite cool. But yeah, so he's playing Rodrigo Zeno, who is the Inquisitor of the at the Doge's palace, and hero Lex Barker plays Sandrigo, who is the son of the Doge, and the Doge is basically the king of Venice.
Yeah, yeah.
Although
Back when,
they're kind of elected, but
right.
for all intents and purposes, it's the king. They have this huge palace which you can still go and see, and I was just walking around it a few months ago, and it hasn't changed at all uh, since the 1600s. It's quite an extraordinary building.
Adrian
And
Smith, world traveler.
I know, well, slightly, just across the pond. It was quite easy for me. It's not that far away. It's only like
Yes,
you
yeah.
visiting a couple of states across, you know.
Yeah, yeah. For me, a 3 hour drive. For you, I guess a 3 hour. I mean, how long does it take you to get to Italy? A couple
To
hours?
fly to Venice is just under 2 hours.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
See,
it's not bad.
I go one state away, it takes 3 hours. You go
Okay.
multiple countries away, it takes you
Yeah.
two.
Well, the countries are all much smaller than yours. Anyway, let's not.
True, true.
Yeah, let's not worry too much about that. Right, and so Sandrigo is in love with the daughter of another prominent Venetian. I forget
Yes.
exactly who he was, but he's friend. Is he friends with the Doge, or is he
The
an
Doge
enemy of the?
is amenable to the pairing
Doesn't
between
yeah?
these two,
Oh, that was it.
definitely.
So she is that's Leonora, played by the Italian actress Alessandra Panaro, and she is again just another great sort of working actress who had a career all through the 60s, then
Hmm.
stopped, and then came back again like 10 years ago to do some TV, but mainly turning up in these kinds of movies in the 60s. The
She was in Pyramid of the Sun God and Treasure of the
Yeah,
Aztecs as well. So interesting that some of these actors worked together multiple times across different films. She was also in The Secret Mark of D'Artagnan, which we covered a couple of episodes
yes, which
back.
was really fun. She was the main love interest in that one, I think.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah, lots of those kinds of movies. And then she, I'm assuming, got married, and that's why she stopped working, as was often the case.
Hmm.
But she moved to Switzerland, to Geneva. That's that's all I've got. She only passed away about 5 years ago. But yeah, she's great. She's got a really interesting character actually in this one. She doesn't just stand around waiting to be
No,
rescued.
she's got a little bit more agency than the
Yeah.
female characters in a lot of these movies, and she does more than simply cringe in the corner while other things are going on, because this so much of this movie revolves around the drama end of things. There's a lot
Mm.
more for her to do. There's some real meat for her to chew on the in this script. She's got things to do,
Hmm.
and she's not just a bystander while all the stuff is going on around her.
Mm. And speaking of D'Artagnan, our good friend Porthos is back in this
Yes.
movie too.
Yes, I love that actor. Mario
Mario
Petri.
Petri, yeah, playing the pirate, the dread. What are we calling him? The dread pirate Oh dear, Guarnieri, Guarnieri, something like that. Guarnieri.
Who is also the masked
Oh yeah,
executioner of Venice.
yeah. He in this same year, just incidentally, played the Black Pirate in a film with Toto. So that
Really?
would be a good double bill, yeah.
Well, I wonder if he sang in that one, because remember,
Oh
he's the
yeah,
guy
yeah, yeah.
whose much larger career was on the stage
Yes,
as a
as a
as a
singer,
bass baritone. He was
yeah,
very well known as an incredible
of
vocalist.
course, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's very good, a very physical performance here. He gets to swing an axe around quite a
Yes.
lot.
And he's very
Yeah,
good in this, man. I mean,
yeah.
one of the things that I always worry about when I encounter someone whose primary acting adventures have been on the stage is there's a tendency. It's a different it's a different skill set to from the stage to the screen. On
Hmm.
stage, you've got to kind of be a little big, especially in opera. And
Yeah,
the thing about being on film is that if you are as big in front of a camera as you are on the stage, it's comedy, it's not drama. But he's the films I've seen him in. He only did about, I mean, he did less than 20 movies. Like I say, his most of his career was on the stage, but
hmm,
he's really good. And here, he's got a lot he's got to do, and he's very good here. This feels, I have to admit, knowing what I knew about the actor, this feels a whole lot like the kind of character you would get in one of those, overly complicated opera plots.
mm,
I mean, because he plays a character who, we the audience are waiting for him and other characters to catch up to what we already know, but
yeah,
has been hidden from them, which is going to completely change his character's point of view on what he should be doing and why. And
yeah.
it's just he's really good at this stuff. So, and like I say, I wish he'd made more than I wish he'd made more than the handful of movies that he made.
Hmm. Yes, and the as somebody even points out in the story that this has the makings of a Greek tragedy, and I'm sure there have been plenty of operas that have had quite similar plots and plot twists.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's not that much of a plot twist in this film. I think we figure out pretty quickly what's going to happen. But yeah, this is really great. So I've got a plot summary. So the film was distributed in the UK by Compton Cameo. Compton would go on to become the premier independent distributor, and also then they produced films as well here in the UK in the 60s. And it was led by Tony Tenser and Michael Klinger. Tony Tenser, who then went on to do Tygon.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty well-known people. But in the early 60s, they were primarily distributing films. I think around this time, 1963, they were just starting to get into production as well with films like The Yellow Teddy Bears and Naked as Nature Intended. That was one of their early ones. So very serious, thoughtful films, obviously. Um,
Obviously.
but yeah, they became particularly so they had a lot of success just a couple of years after this by producing Repulsion for Roman Polanski.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 1965, I think that was. But anyway, at this point, they're mainly distributing and making a lot of money. So they were pulling in a lot of these Italian peplum films and distributing those. So I've got a good plot summary here in from the review in Monthly Film Bulletin.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought we could use this. It gives us some pretty good points. I think it covers it fairly well. So it says we are in.
Before we dive into the
Oh,
plot,
go on.
one other actor I'd like to point out because
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
absolutely
Yes.
stunned. There's just one more. The actor who
Yeah.
played the Doge,
Oh, yes.
his Fyodor
Go on.
Chaliapin.
Yeah.
I,
Something
I,
like that.
I blew the last name. This is terrible.
Yeah, I'm not sure. He's Russian, right?
Right, he's Russian, and he had a very long career. And of course, in this film, he's playing the older father of the Lex Barker character. He's the Doge, and quite a very interesting character. But this actor's career, holy crap! He played the
Oh, yeah.
Doge both in this and in The Lion of Saint Mark, made that same year. So your theory about them being filmed
Back
at the
to
same
back.
times, I doubt they even
Yeah.
had a costume change for this
No.
actor. But he was also in, sad to say, the weakest of the '60s Mabuse films, Death Ray of Dr. Mabuse.
Oh, yeah.
But man, he worked for Fellini. He was in The Eroticist for Lucio Fulci. He was in
Oh,
he was
wow.
yeah, he was in Inferno for Argento. He was
Oh,
in
yeah. He's in
the
the seventh victim, going right back to the Val Lewton film.
exactly.
Wow.
He was in The Name of the Rose. He was in Moonstruck, the Cher film. Uh, he was
So he's
in
playing an old man in this movie, but he actually wasn't that old then.
and he continued to play old men until the 1990s.
Right.
He was in The Church, the Michele Soavi film.
Oh, cool. Yes, he was. He was the bishop in the church.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
It's completely insane. You look at this man's long career, and it's like,
Oh, yeah.
trust me, if you're a movie fan, you've seen him you've seen him
Yeah.
at some point.
He's in Klaus Kinski's Paganini.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, that is quite a career. And he came from a performing family. His father was an opera singer, and his mother was a prima ballerina. So I imagine conversations in their house were a lot of fun.
I think they probably revolved around who gets who has got a job lined up next.
Yeah, who's babysitting tonight? Oh, I'm at the theatre. No, wait, I'm out of the theatre. Oh, hang on. But they had to flee Russia after the revolution and ended up in Paris. So, yeah, quite an arty, interesting upbringing, I imagine.
But yeah, could you take a stab at his last name, because I don't want to leave the world feeling that we can't, one of us can't at least take a shot at it.
I would go with Chalia. Well, I'm trying to do it. It's not Italian.
Chaliapin?
Yeah, Chaliapin. Let's say that.
That's close.
He left Russia and then spent the rest of his life living in Paris. Went to Hollywood. Then after the war, came back to Rome and basically stayed in Rome the rest of his life.
It's kind of amazing, but he's very good in this, and him being a character who, when you start watching the film, you think, oh man, this part of the plot of this is going to be this poor man's death and how it affects his son, and then when his son starts to get into trouble, he like crawls his way out of bed and slaps on his official
on his pointy hat,
right, and starts. Business. Exactly. This was not going to go unchallenged by this man.
Yeah.
I thought that was
like he rolls up his sleeves. He's like, okay, I'm still the boss man here.
I'm still the one that can command the soldiers. By the way, he's pretty great in it, and it's just I didn't want to not mention him because my goodness, what a career that fella had.
Yeah, that's very cool. I hadn't sort of really paid that much attention to who he was, but. Yeah, that's amazing. So here we go. We are in Venice, the year 1617. Rodrigo Zeno, the Grand Inquisitor, plots the downfall of the Doge, whom he plans to usurp. His main obstacle is Sandrigo, the Doge's son. And he has a further reason for wanting Sandrigo out of the way, in that they both love Leonora, who has elected to marry Sandrigo. So, immediately we've got a love triangle. It's very complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But also complicating things is Sandrigo likes hanging out on the Giudecca, which his father, the Doge, doesn't approve of, and neither does Leonora. So they talk about the Giudecca being full of, it's basically where all the working class people live. In this film, it appears to be sort of where all the gypsies live. For some reason.
The character seems to think of it as being in touch with the real people of the city,
and
being able to know them and know what they think.
He feels more at home with these people than he does the wealthy people, and for good reasons, as we discover very soon.
Yeah.
But also, I just mentioned the Giudecca is the island. If you look at a map of Venice, it's like you've got the main place where St. Mark's Square is. And then there's the Grand Canal. So there's another island on the opposite side of that, which is where the Grand Canal is. Then there's another island over the other side of that. That's Giudecca. And it's called Giudecca. It was the Jewish ghetto. Mm-hmm. So when the Jews were forced onto one island in Venice, that's what Giudecca was. And it has its own kind of culture and architecture and stuff. So whether Giudecca would have just been full of thieves and criminals in the 1600s, I'm not entirely sure. But I'll tell you what, it's very nice now.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's all nice.
Oh, by the way, one thing we should address, because I have been trying to get people to watch this film because I think it's great and it's easy to find on YouTube.
It is, as long as you don't look for the Executioner of Venus.
Tell me about it. Autocorrect is not your friend, fans. I'm telling you now. Oh, geez. Anyway, we should explain. I think that this may sound silly, but it is for some true. There is a bit of a hurdle in that the family name of the Doge, the Doge's name is Giovanni Bembo. Okay, that's Bembo. So throughout the entire film, having two characters, including our stalwart hero character played by Lex Barker, being referred to as Bembo, it's a little much for those with a juvenile mind. I'm not saying that would be me, but there was some unintentional laughter from my point of view as well.
Right.
So be aware.
Are you able to explain to our listeners why that's funny?
Because it sounds like the word bembo with an I instead of an E. And bembo would be a slang term for a either a male or female slattern. Let's put it that way.
Slattern. Wow, there's a word that doesn't get used very much.
I was trying to be friendly to the British listeners there, Adrian. Slattern is a British slang term.
Yeah.
I know my European slang, trust me.
So the film actually opens with a kind of wood chopping contest.
Yeah.
As to who can get their axe embedded the furthest into a big tree trunk, and this seems to be a popular game that the men play.
Yes, that men play. How far into the wood can you drive your axe? There's nothing sexual about this. I want to emphasize that there is nothing sexual about this.
So then up pops the pirate chief Guarnieri, who takes on Sandrago, and Guarnieri fancies himself as being the best with the axe, which, as we discover later, is because he's actually the executioner, so he is pretty good with an axe.
Mm-hmm.
But then Sandrago beats him by chopping the wood completely in half, which I thought, if you take the kind of Chekhov's gun principle, would mean that at some point later in the film, Sandrago is going to get to chop something else with an axe and be really good at it. But then he doesn't.
No, it's all swordplay.
Yeah, so that skill that we see at the beginning there never comes into play again.
No,
so
but that particular skill in beating the other character in this contest with the axes does kind of show, shall we say, a generational difference.
Well, that is true, because it turns out that Guarnieri, so like it says here, to further his plans against the Doge, Rodrigo Zeno has secured the cooperation of Guarnieri, who has long nursed a hatred for the Doge in the belief that the latter killed his infant son many years before. Meanwhile, I guess, this is where, because I don't think this is too much of a spoiler because it's in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The Doge, who appears to be possibly on his deathbed, kind of makes a confession to his son, Sandrio, that actually he's not really his son. And then he tells him the truth that when he was a young Doge, like 30 years earlier or something, he had Guarnieri's pirate ship attacked and they killed everybody apart from a baby. And so he raised that child as his own. And I was amused how Sandrago seemed a bit surprised by this, because he's basically got a big pirate tattoo.
Yeah, and this is him. This is his, who he thinks of as his father, finally explaining, why do I have this tattoo, which is emblematic of pirates? Yeah.
What did he think that tattoo was all this time?
It's like, Dad, I couldn't have been born this way. It's a little weird. So,
I don't know about you. I've seen a lot of exploitation films where a tattoo is a key element of a plot. It's a very popular way of, I don't know how many films I've seen where it's been some kind of spy film or whatever, where a vital clue is tattooed on the bottom of some sexy woman. I've seen I've seen that happen a few times.
Well, also the tattoo on a lost child is a pretty standard thing. That's all the way up through barbarian films in the 1980s. Yes, to
Westworld. In Westworld, the little girl has the map to the promised land tattooed on it.
You're talking about the television series. You're right. Yeah.
Sorry, not Westworld, Waterworld. But there is, you're right. In Westworld, there's a tattoo on the inside of a scalp.
Exactly.
But I'm thinking of Waterworld, where the little girl has a map of where dry land is tattooed on her back.
It's true. All of this is
Yeah,
all of this weirdness that involves inking small children. It's sad.
yeah, very odd. But anyway, but Sandringham takes the news well and says, "I will always love you like a father, father, despite the fact that it appears you killed my mother."
Well, then it wouldn't have been exactly him, but at his orders, possibly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's one part, but he doesn't tell him then who his father was, just that he was the baby from a pirate ship.
Well, I don't know that did he
He doesn't.
know?
The
Yeah.
Doge doesn't say, or maybe he doesn't know whose kid he is.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's one of the things that we kind of like about the Doge is that when we meet him, he's unwell, he's not, he seems like at the end of his life, and he's confessing to his son that, hey, I raised you, you are my child, but you're not my, you're not my
Yeah.
blood. I need you to know this now, so that if there's any
Mm.
lingering mystery about the fact that somebody inked you when you were a child, it's not
Yeah.
it's not a lingering mystery after I'm gone.
Yeah, and it explains why he feels more at home on the Geodaca. Because even Leonora has told him that once they get married, he can't keep hanging out with those people.
Yeah, you'll bring home some disease. I mean,
Yeah, it's beneath your status. But it's obviously, it's in his blood. So, I mean, this film could almost have been called The Pirates of Venice.
that's
'Cause
true.
This is where we start, because then it turns out that I can never pronounce it, Guarnieri, he, as part of this plot with the Doge, is to get Sandrigo basically arrested and executed.
Mhm.
And Rodrigo plans to then bring down the Doge and become the Doge himself. I think that's basically
Yeah,
what
yeah.
it is. So he's got Guarnieri to act. I'm not quite sure why this is part of his plan, but other than it's just perverse, he's got him to be the executioner.
Well, I think
because
it's to keep him close. Give him a
Yeah.
job, something he can do well, something that allows him to work out
And
the frustration and
I suppose, yeah, because he wants to take vengeance against the Doge and all of the Doge's people.
right.
So this way he gets to chop off loads of heads.
So, but that's something I love about this film is that as the audience, we spend almost an hour of the running time of the film going, well, is this guy ever going to find out that the quote unquote son of the Doge is actually his blood, his child? Is it
Yeah.
ever going to happen? Because if that ever happens, I can tell you right now, Zeno is going to bite it hard because he's
Yeah.
not going to have any friends
Exactly.
on screen.
So Zeno knows this secret for some reason, presumably because he just saw the tattoo one time
Right.
or something. But Guarnieri tells us all the story about how he wants to get vengeance against the Doge because the Doge killed his wife and child.
And it's during
And
that
so
scene where I
penny-
look
the
at
penny
I look at
drops.
the actor and I go, yes, this man definitely was an opera singer. This man
Yeah.
is selling the pathos of this
Oh, yeah.
this horrid
It's really good.
past.
That would be a big song.
Yeah.
I went to see an opera once years ago. I can't remember what it was called. It was Eastern European, maybe. And it was basically just full of songs about dead children. It was really miserable.
Well, I've seen a couple. I started with Deflator Mouse, which
Oh,
I think
nice.
is
That's
a
a
good
good one.
is yeah, everybody knows
quite fun.
everybody knows that's like a good entry point, and I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that. Went with friends and with my sweetheart, and we had a good time. And the only other one I've ever seen them wasn't a full staging. It was when what amounts to a kind of on-stage table read of the Hercules and the Haunted World opera.
Whoa, there's an opera of that.
Oh yeah. There was an
Wow.
opera. It's never been produced as a full opera.
That's
What I saw
cool.
was as close as we've ever gotten. It was one of the
Oh.
it was staged here in
Wow.
Nashville.
Well, I have close family who work in the opera world. So this is how I've managed to go and see some operas because I got free
Oh, there
tickets.
you go.
I should mention they should do Hercules in the Haunted World next. See if I
Well,
could put in
it's
a word.
like I say, people look up the Hercules and the Haunted World opera. You'll find out the details of it because it's been, good Lord, what has it been? Eight years since they staged it here, maybe longer.
Cool.
But it was like I say, it wasn't a full production. It was
Oh.
kind of a
But
kind of
the
a presentation.
staging, you could do amazing staging.
That's
with
oh
that.
yeah, that's just it. I mean, that's
So
the
cool.
beauty of it.
Okay.
And I'm no opera fanatic or have any real knowledge of it, but people who are opera fanatics. You know, a lot of them were all saying the same thing, which is this is really something that if anybody can be convinced to do this
Wow.
at scale, this would be just a great opera. And it's like, well, yeah, I've seen the movie, of course.
I'll see what I can do. But anyway, yeah, just to balance it out, I did also, so I saw this opera just singing about dead children and having to drown your children in the river because you can't afford to feed them. It was that kind of opera. But then I went to see another one, which was basically just full of Hungarian drinking songs for 3 hours. So
There's nothing wrong with that.
there's yin and there's yang.
Exactly.
But anyway, so they get, I don't want to give too much else away because again, there's probably a good chance people haven't seen this. So we will say that Sandrigo does get arrested, and then there's a lot of intrigue and rescue attempts, and is he going to get his head chopped off or not? And then also what's going to happen to Leonora? She joins a convent at one point, which is pretty cool. That is a real place as well. There's so many real locations. So for example, in the court scene where he stood before the 10 judges in the Doge's palace, that is, I've been in that room.
Really?
The Doge's palace
That's
is incredible.
crazy.
Yeah, the Doge's palace is amazing, and because it wasn't just a palace that we think of as like a nice house. It was the administrative center of Rome, so it's full of rooms where all these meetings would have taken place, and all the administration of Venice was done from the palace. And then
Wow.
we also see a few times in the film the Bridge of Sighs. They go under it a few times.
Yeah.
So the Bridge of Sighs connects the palace to the prison. So that's why it's called the Bridge of Sighs, because prisoners would allegedly sigh as they looked out the window and saw their last view of the lagoon before going into the prison. And so when you go there today, you can still go across the bridge and into the prison, and you can walk all around the prison. So when we see, there's one point where there's a rescue attempt and we see one of his friends scale the wall of the prison.
Yeah.
That's right by the Bridge of Sighs, and then he jumps back down into the canal. I've got pictures of us standing right there, and yeah. So it's what's amazing. Obviously, this is 60 years ago, this film, and Venice hasn't changed at all. But of course, more significantly, in 1963, when they shot this, it looked still the same as it would have done in the 1600s. I'm sure, if anyone listening, if you've been to Venice, do let us know what you think of the place. But it's kind of like this impossible place that you can go to, and you can walk around and believe that it could be 200, 300, 400 years ago. Nothing has changed. It's all exactly the same. It's a really incredible place. So it was really fun to see this one and just have so much of it just being shot really in those places, in the piazzas, in the churches, in the palace, on the roof of the Basilica San Marco.
And shooting in these locations adds immeasurably to the zest that the film has, because you're actually in these real places. It's not these are not elaborate sets. These are the real locations, and there's something about that it's astonishing. I mean, it is that old thing about why does Hollywood fake everything on the back lot? Because they have to, and in Europe they can just hire out a place for 2 days.
Yeah. The one person we haven't mentioned, there's a couple of characters we haven't mentioned. He has a friend who's blind called Bartolo.
Oh yeah, he's kind of the go-to person, the person that everyone goes to, and
he is super useful all the way through.
Yeah, great
and
character.
Then there's also another friend, and I couldn't quite catch his name, but he's there all through, just helping him with fights. And then I wanted to give this guy a shout out, but I can't remember the character's name. He jumps from the balcony around the top of the Basilica San Marco to fight, and he does the guy is doing this real leap. So I think it was a stuntman that was cast just to be in the film, because he doesn't speak much, but he does do some fights, and then he jumps off the balcony, which I've been up there. You wouldn't want to jump off that on a normal day. So, but also one thing I noticed, I wish I could remember who he was. Pietro, maybe? I can't remember. Anyway, there's a really fun moment where pirates attack the convent, and there's a big sword fight between the pirates and Sandrigo and his men. at where all the nuns are. And if you look closely, you can see that this guy, whose name I can't remember, has split his. At one point, he split his.
Oh, he split
trousers.
his pants. It's true.
Did you see that as well?
Yes, it's impossible to miss.
But then a couple of scenes, like a little bit later, his pants are fine. So you could say, well, yes, obviously they shot this fight not in sequence, but I like to imagine he just quickly stepped out of the fight for a minute and stitched them back up again, and then
or stole pants off somebody else.
Or stole a dead guy's pants, yeah. But I did think that was particularly funny, that he's really obviously split his trousers and no one's saying anything. I mean, you imagine a pirate would just say, "It's all right, look, just take a second, sort your trousers out, then we'll carry on." but later on, that guy does jump off the side of the basilica, which is a pretty brave move
and a hell of a stunt. I mean,
yeah, it's really
wow.
good. Yeah, so there is action. None of the action in this film is quite as exciting as we've seen in the other movies.
No.
But like I said, I think that's just because of the location they were in. It had to be smaller scale.
And they opened up some of the action in that final sequence when they're out in that wider area where all the fighting is going on at once. That's approaching the level of excitement of some of the fight sequences in some of the other movies we've covered this time around. But at least in this season, but it's still, like I say, it is 65% drama, 35% action, but the action involved is still pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't really want to say any more because people should find this, and there is a pretty decent quality copy on YouTube.
Yeah, it's actually surprisingly easy on the eyes. It's not a bad print at all.
And it's an English language, and it looks to me, the lip sync looks like it was shot in English anyway. So yeah, it's an English language print. You can tell that whoever did the dubbing wasn't Italian, because they should have picked up on a mistake somebody makes where they refer to a priest as being Capucine when it would have been pronounced Capuchin. That was something I picked up on. They're called the Capuchin monks who invented the cappuccino. Right, so
you could be pulling my leg. I would not know.
Yeah, no, they did. And if you go to Rome, you can go to the Capuchin crypt, where like a couple hundred years ago, a totally insane monk was allowed to raid the crypt and create. Basically, you know what the house looks like in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
So imagine that if you had access to hundreds of skeletons. And so they've kind of created this amazing artwork all up the walls of the crypt. There are chandeliers made of human bones, and you get. But this is the Capuchin crypt in Rome, but because it was religious, it wasn't considered weird, but it is pretty weird. But anyway, that's by the by. But
it wasn't considered weird, but we all know better.
Yeah, it's weird. Also, I just saw a film last week starring Al Pacino playing a Capuchin monk. So that is definitely how it's pronounced, but they say Capucine in this film. So whoever dubbed it in a hurry.
Wait, what was this Al Pacino film?
It's a new film called The Ritual.
Which is basically I've read a bit about that.
Yeah, it's another Exorcist film. Imagine The Exorcist if it was shot like an episode of The Office.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
That's what it is.
I will still see it. You have not put me off.
Anyway, I digress. So the review, I found a couple of British reviews. They're pretty complimentary. I'll just finish this one here on Monthly Film Bulletin. Says, and obviously they're picking up on the point here that British cinemas had a lot of these kinds of films at the moment. It says, this film makes a mild breakaway from the current cycle of Italian spectacles by having a moderately intelligent and not merely muscle-bound hero. Well, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
It also has some attractive Venetian settings and is occasionally quite impressive pictorially. Which is definitely true.
Definitely.
Yeah, this would look great on the big screen. But then they can't just give it a straight pass. The plot, however, is as contrived as they come, and Capuano's hesitant direction is not lively enough to overcome its excesses.
I would need an explanation of what the excesses are.
Yeah, and also hesitant direction.
I need if I'm going to get to ask one question, I'm asking the first one.
Like, what are you talking about? But yeah, so in amongst, like you said before, a lot of this stuff would have been more kind of studio based, particularly if they were watching a lot of Hercules movies. So for a film like this to come along in the middle of that, where it's all really attractive Venice scenery, would have been quite appealing to audiences at the time, I think.
Yeah, that last review makes it sound like, it's pretty, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's actually a good film. Come on.
Yeah, it is good. Yeah, it's got a good plot. And yes, we can see certain things coming and they're not massively surprising, but it's, you can say that about a lot of genre film. The pleasure is in how they do it. It's not the plot, it's the execution that makes it interesting, I think. No pun intended.
Well put. But in both regards, both as your winking joke and factually correct.
Yeah. So another big thumbs up from me.
Oh, from me as well. I don't want to sound like a broken record. I think I am starting to sound that way, but I do love these types of films. That's why we're doing this season in the first place. Yeah. But this is yet again another example of why I think this bizarre little subgenre deserves more attention, because these kind of adventure films are a blast. They are very fun, and there are a lot of good ones.
Yes, so speaking of which, what we're going to watch for the next episode, which we'll try and come back to you with a next episode a bit quicker.
Yes. I think probably what we ought to do is go ahead and do the Umberto Lenzi film, the
Invincible Masked Rider.
Yes, I think You're going to love it.
Okay, sounds good to me. Another one from 1963.
Yes.
Okay, good. And we are over halfway through now. I think this is film number 6.
Wow, it has taken us forever to get.
I know.
I mean, not that I'm not enjoying it, obviously, but
no,
we just keep having to take breaks to these commentary tracks.
It's only just June now, and I think we've done 4 commentary tracks this year so far.
Oh, wow.
So that has slowed the podcast production down a little bit. But anywho, it means we can keep the podcast going for free.
It's true.
I guess. So, yeah, thanks everybody for listening. Another recommendation from us. I'll put the link to the YouTube version in the notes, but of course you can also it'd probably be quicker for you to just go to YouTube and find it yourself. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks, and in the meantime, subscribe, like, tell your friends, share it online. That would be great. Give us a review somewhere. Get in touch with us.
Buy the T-shirt. Oh, but one quick aside. At the convention I went to this past weekend in Louisville, Kentucky, on Saturday I wore my Regia de Anthony Dawson T-shirt.
Oh, and, good.
I figured it would be a very small number of people, and it was, but the 5 total people who went, "Oh, I love your shirt," were very enthusiastic, and I was just like, you too can have this shirt, as well as, and then I explained the whole Alan Collins shirt as well, which immediately had one of them on their phone Googling.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yeah,
excellent.
Yeah.
Good. And maybe one day I can come over there and have a whole stall. That would be good. That's never going to happen. So
never.
Quick bit of voice. We've had Lee got in touch with us. Just wanted to mention, I'm pretty sure this was since the last episode, where I happened to mention a film called Monster Demolisher, and I think we were looking at TV listings, and there was a film called Monster Demolisher which neither of us had heard of. So Lee got in touch to say that it was one of 4 films compiled from a Mexican multi-part serial originally called The Evil of Nostradamus.
Oh, yeah. I've seen, they were Mexican. They're very interesting films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although he says don't go out of your way to see the serial or the 4 films unless you're really into people talking.
Well, that's the thing. I've never seen the individual serial chapters. I've only seen the very chopped down movie versions. But I've enjoyed those, but it's partially because they are so weird. So
Yeah, no, I have to admit that was a new one on me. So when we did the last episode, Women of Devil's Island, Nicholas Dubriel, I'm sorry, I know how to pronounce that wrong, Dubriel.
I
Anyway,
am not sure, but
sorry, Nicholas.
I'm glad he's there anyway.
Yeah, and I'm assuming he's French, but he might not be, but he knows a lot about French stuff. Anyway, he commented on Facebook that we're talking about Angelique, because I think we mentioned how it'd be great to do it. We'd have to have a French podcast to do it. But he says no need to create a special podcast for the highly recommended Angelique series, which we talked about because the star of the film was in those movies, which he says are a systematic success on French TV to this day. All the films were European co-productions, with Italy as an active collaborator, hence notable Italian co-stars Giuliano Gemma, Rosalba Neri, Umberto Rojo, etc., etc. There are some good copies available online, and he says, I wouldn't go as far as to say each TV broadcast influenced French birth rate, but it's close enough.
Yes.
So apparently they are pretty popular and a little bit sexy.
Yes, vaguely erotic is what I have heard, yes.
Also wanted to mention that you can also watch Women of Devil's Island on Cult Pix, if any of you have the streaming platform Cult Pix, which
cool.
I probably don't talk about enough, but I do love those guys who run Cult Pix. They ran the Swedish Film Festival I went to last year, so do check out Cult Pix. Incidentally, Cult Pix are just launching a sister channel, which is going to be something weird as a streaming service.
Yeah, it was big news amongst us geeky types when they inked that deal with something weird to get their library to stream.
Yeah. So that's going to be a new streaming platform run by the guys who run Cult Pix, who are both top guys. Anyway, right, I've talked enough. So I think we'll finish there. Anything else you want to mention before we go?
No. Keep an eye on the Bloody Pit podcast as well. New episodes coming, at least one a month. I know I used to do 2 a month, and I'm slowing down, but people I'm getting older, give me a break.
Yeah, exactly. At our age, Rod, it's a miracle we can still get out of bed in the mornings and make anything.
Yeah. I can get one eye to function. It's great.
Yeah. Anywho, okay, we're done. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back soon. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.